in 2025, Google Ads has absolutely changed forever. And if you're still doing things the old way, you're definitely leaving money on the table for your clients and for your own bank account as well, right? So I wanted to make this video today because I see a lot of worry in the industry. I see a lot of worry on LinkedIn as far as PPC specialists, Google Ads specialists, whether you're running ads for yourself, running ads for clients, and really a lot of worry about AI taking over Google Ads specialist jobs and just taking over the whole industry with automation and all the changes that Google is bringing in. It feels like there's never been a faster paced time in the history of Google Ads where so many things are changing so quickly, and we're really, or some people are really struggling to keep up. Some processes have to evolve. A lot of things just need to change, right? And, transition period is never easy. It's always a hard time in any life of a software, a service, as Google Ads basically is, right? So the main thing, or the main way I look at this problem is how does PPC specialists' jobs fit in, right, with this new sort of world order in Google Ads? When there's so much automation, when there's performance max, when there's, clearly the way it's going is that we're just going to be going in and clicking a few buttons, and sort of a lot of our control, a lot of the options and a lot of our control is going to be taken away. So if it's going in that direction, then where do we fit in, right? There's definitely the part of being more strategic. So I talk about this a lot in my community. I help a lot of Google Ads specialists, freelancers with this, which is, working with your client a lot more, getting clarity on their business goals, their revenue, how you can help them develop product lines. Maybe there's like a pro version of their product, maybe there's a light free version of their product, for example. All these things, I think they're going to become way, way more important. And I've been preaching this for years because those things are never going to go away, right? You're always going to find so much value, and your client's going to find so much value in you helping them as a business, right? And you driving revenue for them, helping them find clarity, expanding products, looking at lifetime value, average order value, all those kind of things. So there's definitely a massive shift, and there's always going to be value in the strategic side. And this is really where I see things going, right? So taking a 30,000 feet view on where does your career go if you're a Google Ads PPC specialist in 2025, you want to be a lot more strategic. You want to start building up your skills, your complementary skills with Google Ads. So complementary skills, stuff like SEO, stuff like landing page optimization, stuff like, more business knowledge, more commercial stuff. Like I just mentioned, working with products, working with product lines, getting to understand, packaging and how a business can sort of just grow in general, right? How you can really complement what you're doing in the Google Ads interface, or what Google is going to be doing in the future with automation. But the big elephant in the room that maybe actually I don't see people talking about or thinking about that much is how our jobs are changing to be more of a manager of these tools, and then how do we interact with these tools? So take Performance Max, for example, right? You would think that that's a all-in-one, search, display, shopping, YouTube. It's an all-in-one campaign type that's very automation driven. It's really a black box. You don't get a ton of insights from it. So logic would say that that would be run the same way for everyone, right? But I can tell you 100 different Performance Max setups that I've seen across different specialists, across different accounts, different size of budgets, for example, different industries and different countries even. Like there's a massive range of how to run Performance Max and how to use the various features, whether to run it feed only, whether to run it as a full campaign with all the channels included. There's so many different ways to run it. So this is what's crazy is you would think with all this automation, all these campaigns would just be run one way, but they're actually not. It's completely different to that. In reality, there's still so much going on as far as how the PPC manager, how I interact with these new features, interact with the automation, interact with the smart learning, with the machine learning, right? And I think it's definitely got to the point where generally, whether you like it or not, automation, smart bidding generally will do a better job and just has access to far more data and far more factors than you as a Google Ads specialist ever will. So probably it's going to do a better job, but it's really your job now. And this is where I say your job is now morphing. Our role is morphing from being like more of a button pusher, to put it bluntly, to being more of a master of this automation, you know, controlling it and showing it where to look, giving it the right information. And we've sort of seen this slowly evolve, but I think this is going to be the first year where we fully see automation and Performance Max be pushed even more as far as performance goes, right? So I think in 2023, 2024, we had this sort of transition period. We had this sort of, you know, hybrid we saw a lot in accounts where people were running like standard shopping, Performance Max, exact match, broad match, like all these different things together. I think as we go more into automation, the products get a ton better. Like Performance Max has got so many new features now. As we see that start to happen, the products start maturing and we get further on in the life cycle of these products, we will start to see, and we already have started to see, at least I've seen it in a lot of accounts, those campaign types, those automated, new, smart campaign types do a hell of a lot better performance-wise compared to anything that we could come up with as Google Ads specialists. So that sort of begs the question of, okay, so where do we fit in, right? What do we do if the campaigns are driving all the performance themselves and they're making all the right moves, you know, taking into account all the factors that we can't, then where do we fit into that? Well, it's a really interesting question. And there's definitely the strategic part. There's definitely the part around being the master of the automation and, you know, showing it the right places to go, the right places to look. And then there's also the part where there'll always be, I think, a exact match. There'll always be a standard shopping campaign. I think it might change for the worse. You know, we might lose more control. We might lose features from those more manual type campaigns, but I think they'll always be there in one way or another. And I think there'll always be a place for them in a strategy. It might just turn from being 50% of the spend to maybe 10% of the spend or 5% of the spend. I think there'll always be a place to experiment with those things, to really, you know, play around with those things, test them, right? I don't think they'll ever fully go away. They'll probably just lose their performance, right? They'll probably just lose their performance over time as Performance Max and as all these automated campaigns get stronger and stronger, they get more feature rich. Then, yeah, where does that sort of end up? Where does that leave us, right? Where does that leave us? Where do we end up as PPC managers? It's been a question that's been playing on my mind so much, and something I've had so many interesting conversations around. And that's why I wanted to make this video, to really just share a couple of ideas that I had, a couple of discussions that I had with some really cool people in the industry that, you know, were behind closed doors, right? So I thought, hey, why not share this with the world? I think you should be thinking about this if you're a Google Ads specialist. I think you should be making your plan to get clarity around, you know, where does my job end up in a couple of years? You know, if Google is pushing this way, like, what do I end up doing? And as I said, start building up your character, basically, right? Building up your complementary skills, building up your business knowledge, talk to your clients more, you know, even just asking the right questions can really go a long way. You know, you don't have to take a bunch of courses. You don't have to sort of invest a bunch of money. A lot of you will be sitting there thinking, I don't have any time to learn complementary skills. Well, a really small but impactful way you can start is just talking to your clients more. And I don't mean talking about Google Ads, clicks, CPCs, stuff like that, but actually just ask them the right questions. For example, how is the business doing? How are other channels doing? How is direct mail if they run other stuff like that? How is that doing? How is that performing? How do you set your budget in Google Ads, right? Because different businesses have different ways of setting budgets. And that's actually a really important thing to understand as a strategic partner and not just as a Google Ads manager, right? So as far as where it leads us as PPC managers in 2025, I think we're going to shift a lot more to controlling the tools, being more strategic, and really being much more important, right? Because there's also the part of, I was just trying to think how to say it. There's the part where like how the tools all fit together, right? Like building the account, the hierarchy. For example, if you have demand gen, performance max, a search campaign, a branded search campaign, if you have 4 or 5 campaigns running in your account, what budget do you give each of those, right? Google doesn't really tell you that, right? It tells you individual budgets, but it doesn't tell you like the overall budget or the budget you should set for each performance benchmark or each sort of goal that you have, each objective that you have, right? So understanding how those parts sort of fit together is, I think, going to become a really big part of our job and a really important part of our job. We just don't see exactly how that works yet, but like that's something I think is missing from how Google communicates these tools sometimes, is when Performance Max comes out or when Demand Gen comes out, how do you use it? What is the use case? Like Google always goes with these 2 times conversions with this new campaign, or, this has got this performance, but it's really missing the context, right? And that's what's our job, I think, to really work out, like, what is the context you're meant to use this campaign type, right? And of course, there's so many different scenarios, there's so many different use cases, but you can sort of start to understand over time, okay, some of them are better suited, some scenarios, some businesses are better suited for Performance Max, some are better suited for just search, some are better suited for a mix of, all 3 or 4 or 5 campaigns I just mentioned, right? So I think a lot of our job is not just going to be strategic, but actually figuring out like how all those campaign types work together, and the best use case for them. And I think people with experience across a bunch of accounts will really win here. And this is something, again, I've preached for years, is get as much experience across as many accounts as possible, because otherwise you become quite narrow-minded in the sense of you just see one setup work and you say, hey, this is the best 2025 Google Ads setup. And I really personally don't believe there is a best setup, right? Of course, year to year, things work, things don't work, but really and truly, like, each account does differ quite a lot. And there might be, a better way to use Performance Max in general that you see. But really, it just comes down to having that knowledge, having that experience across a lot of accounts to then make an informed decision. Maybe it's not a guaranteed this is going to work, but to make the informed decisions, I think are going to become way more important in 2025 compared to 2024 and before that as well, right? So that's where it leaves us. So I'll see you in the next one, guys. Stay profitable.